The wind howled through the narrow alleyway, carrying with it the bitter sting of a New York winter snow blanketed the ground, its pristine surface only broken by the occasional footprints of stray animals and the remnants of discarded trash. The city never truly slept yet in this forgotten corner. Silence reigned, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional rustling of a rat scurrying for shelter. In the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, a small bundle lay motionless against the cold brick wall. A baby, barely a few hours old, wrapped in nothing but a thin, tattered blanket. The infant's tiny face was pale, lips tinged blue from the unforgiving cold. The fragile rise and fall of its chest grew weaker with each passing moment. No one had seen, no one had heard, and if no one came soon, the baby's fate would be sealed by the merciless winter night. A few feet away, a pair of yellow eyes flickered in the darkness. A German shepherd, ribs jutting out beneath its matted fur, moved cautiously. Through the alley, the dog had once known warmth, perhaps even love. But those days were long gone now. Hunger was its only companion, gnawing at its stomach as it sniffed desperately at a toppled trash bin. Then it froze. A scent, faint but distinct, cut through the stench of the alley, the smell of something small, vulnerable. The dog's ears perked up, its instinct sharpening slowly. Cautiously, it followed the scent, its paws leaving prints in the freshly fallen snow. And then it saw the bundle on the ground, the soft, weak sound, a whimper, barely louder than the wind. The German shepherd stepped closer, lowering its head. It sniffed the tiny face peeking out from the blanket. The baby was cold, too cold. The dog's body tensed, an old, long, buried instinct rising within it, protect the animal, hesitated only for a second before doing something that no one would have expected. The German shepherd hesitated, ears flicking as it studied the fragile form in the snow. It had seen many things in its life, cruelty, abandonment, survival, but never this. The baby's shallow breaths were uneven wisps of air barely visible against the freezing night. Instinct told the dog that something was terribly wrong. It stepped closer, sniffing cautiously beneath the scent of the icy night, the faint traces of milk and something even more fragile. Life lingered on the baby's skin, but it was slipping away, fading. With every passing second, the dog exhaled sharply, a small cloud of warmth escaping its muzzle as it processed what it had found. Memories stirred, distant and blurred. The shepherd had not always been as stray. Once it had a name, a purpose. It had been trained, taught to protect, to serve, but that was before it had been abandoned, left to fend for itself in the streets before hunger and loneliness became its only companions. But some instincts never fade. The shepherd made its decision in an instant. Instead of walking away, it circled the baby, pressing its body close to the tiny, shivering form. Its thick fur, rough and unkempt from months of neglect, became a shield against the brutal wind. It lowered its head, nudging the baby's cheek, with its cold nose rousing a faint, pitiful whimper. The sound sent a pang through the dog's chest. It let out a soft whine in response, a sound it hadn't made in years, one of comfort, reassurance. Slowly the shepherd lay down, curling its body protectively around the baby. Its heartbeat, steady and strong, pulsed against the child's fragile frame, offering warmth. Where there had been only cold, instinct urged it to keep the baby awake. To keep it breathing carefully, it licked the baby's tiny face. Its rough tongue a gentle contrast against the child's delicate skin. The baby stirred just barely, but it was enough. The shepherd lifted its head, eyes scanning the empty alley. It was alone, just the dog and the child, two abandoned souls left to the mercy of the night. Its amber eyes gleamed with something deep and unwavering. It understood this child needed saving, and it would not let it die. The German shepherd pressed its body closer against the baby, but it wasn't enough. The infant's tiny frame remained cold, its breathing faint. The dog's warmth could only do so much. The child needed more, needed help. The shepherd's ears twitched, it lifted its head. Scanning the alley, the city stretched beyond the darkened passage filled with people, noise and life. But here, in this forgotten corner, no one was watching. No one knew it couldn't stay here. With a sharp inhale, the dog made a choice. It stood, stepping away from the baby for the first time. The cold immediately crept back in, but there was no other way. Then it barked. The sharp, echoing sound shattered the stillness of the night. A warning, a plea, nothing. The dog barked again, louder this time. It ran toward the entrance of the alley, paws kicking up. Snow then turned back, glancing at the baby as if afraid to leave it alone. Its instincts wed within protect or seek help. It had never needed anyone before, but this wasn't about itself. It barked once more, a desperate, urgent cry. Still silence. The dog whimpered, pacing anxiously. It trotted back to the child, nudging it with its nose. No response. A low, distressed whine escaped the shepherd's throat. The baby was slipping away. Then footsteps, slow shuffling, hesitant. The dog's ears perked up. A figure emerged at the far end of the alley, bundled in layers of tattered clothing, hunched against the cold. An old man, his face was lined with years of hardship. His unkempt beard streaked with grey. He moved cautiously, eyes squinting through the dim light. Joe had lived on these streets long enough to know when something was off. The barking had woken him a sound too persistent, too urgent to ignore. He hesitated, rubbing his hands together for warmth, debating whether he should turn away. Then he saw the dog. The shepherd stood near the alley entrance, its body tense, ears forward, eyes locked onto him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. But it wasn't aggression. It was something else, something pleading. Joe took a step forward. The dog didn't move another step. Then the shepherd turned and ran back into the alley. It stopped near the bundle on the ground, looking back at Joe when waiting. The old man's stomach twisted. He knew, before he even reached them, that something was terribly wrong. Joe stopped in his tracks, his breath catching in his throat. At first he thought his tired eyes were deceiving him. A baby so impossibly small, barely a presence beneath the thin, tattered blanket, lay nestled in the snow, and beside it, curled protectively, was the German shepherd. The old man blinked his mind, struggling to make sense of what he was seeing. The dog, thin and battle-worn, its fur streaked with dirt, was wrapped around the baby like a living shield. The scene was surreal, as stray, forgotten by the world, guarding a child who had also been abandoned. The shepherd lifted its head as Joe approached, its amber eyes locking onto his head. There was no hostility, no fear, only a silent plea. Help. Joe hesitated. He had so little. His coat, tattered and thin, barely kept him warm. His shoes had holes. His stomach ached with hunger. More often than not, he had nothing to give, nothing except himself. And yet the baby let out a weak, shuddering breath. Joe flinched. There was no time to think, no time to doubt. Carefully he knelt, his hands trembling as he reached for the fragile bundle. The shepherd tensed, but did not move, watching his every motion. When Joe lifted the baby, the dog whined softly, standing up, pacing in place as though afraid to be separated. Joe's fingers brushed against ice-cold skin. His heart clenched without another thought. He shrugged off his coat, wrapping it tightly around the child. He pulled the bundle close, pressing the baby against his chest, willing his body heat to pass through the fabric. The child was so light, too light, the shepherd barked. Once, sharp, urgent, Joe knew there was no time ignoring the pain in his stiff joints. He pushed himself to his feet and turned toward the street. His legs, tired and weak, carried him forward in a desperate, determined stride. The dog followed. Joe didn't question it. Streetlights flickered overhead as he staggered forward. The baby bundled against him, snow crunched beneath his feet, and the night air burned in his lung. He knew where he had to go. The police station was 10 blocks away. It would feel like a H100 in this cold, but stopping wasn't an option. The shepherd kept pace beside him, its breath visible in the freezing air. It didn't stray, didn't hesitate. It ran as though it understood what was at stake, as though it knew that they were running against death itself. The hospital room was quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor. Bright fluorescent lights illuminated the small bundle lying in the hospital crib. No longer wrapped in a tattered blanket, but in a soft, warm one. Tiny fingers twitched, and a weak but steady breath filled the air. The baby had survived. Doctors and nurses murmured in amazement. Hypothermia had nearly claimed the child, but thanks to the warmth of the German shepherd, the baby had tried to lead it away. There was a fear, protectiveness in its eyes, as though it had sworn an oath to never let the baby be alone again. A detective stepped into the room. His expression, grim. Joe looked up. "We found the mother," the officer said. Joe's fingers tightened slightly. He said nothing. "She's a young woman, 18, single, no family." She left the baby in the alley, out of desperation, said she thought someone would find it sooner. She's been living in a shelter, struggling to survive herself. The detective exhaled. "She's heartbroken, regrets everything." Joe's jaw clenched, memories pressing in on him like a weight. He knew desperation, he knew loss, and he knew what it was like to live with regret. Taking a shaky breath, he let his gaze drift back to the crib. The baby was so small, so fragile, it was a miracle that it had been found at all. And yet hadn't he been found too? For years, Joe had walked these streets alone, carrying the invisible burden of a past. He couldn't escape his daughter. His sweet, bright-eyed girl had been taken from him in a tragic accident long ago. That grief had never left him. He had let the world swallow him whole, had convinced himself he had no place left in it. But now, sitting in this hospital room watching a child who had been given a second chance, something shifted inside him. The detective spoke again, softer this time. "The baby will go into the foster system unless a guardian steps forward." Joe barely heard him. His eyes flickered to the shepherd. At his feet, the dog met his gaze, and in that silent exchange, something passed between them, an understanding. The shepherd had saved the child, had protected it when no one else did. Joe knew in that moment that he had been saved too. A nurse entered, smiling down at the dog. "They say you're a hero," she murmured, scratching behind its ears. Joe chuckled softly. "He needs a name, doesn't he, the dog?" Tilted its head, listening. Joe nodded, a small, knowing smile forming on his lips. Guardian, the name, spread quickly within hours. The story of the stray dog who had saved an abandoned baby flooded social media. People were in awe of the loyalty, the sacrifice, the sheer miracle of it all. News outlets picked it up, calling Guardian a hero. Donations poured in for both the baby and the dog. For the first time in years, Joe wasn't invisible anymore. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving. He was being given a chance to live again. The story of Joe Guardian and the baby spread like wildfire. What had begun as a quiet, tragic moment in a forgotten alley had now captured the hearts of millions. News stations covered it online, communities shared it, and soon the world was watching. People saw something extraordinary. A man who had nothing, giving everything he could to save a child, a dog who had been abandoned, choosing to protect another who had also been left behind. It wasn't just a rescue story, it was a story of love, sacrifice, and second chances. Donations flooded in. Organizations for the homeless reached out, offering Joe assistance. Families who had adopted children shared their stories, saying they knew the importance of a second chance animal. Lovers sent messages of support for Guardian, calling him a hero, offering to cover his medical care and food for life. Then something even more unexpected happened. A non-profit organization, moved by Joe's kindness and determination, set up a fund in his name. The goal was simple: to ensure that neither he nor the baby would ever be without a home again. Within days, the fund had raised enough to give Joe a small but comfortable house, a place where he could start over, and for the first time in decades, Joe stepped inside a home of his own. The baby, whom he had risked everything to save, was no longer just a child, without a name or a future. With the help of social workers and legal teams, Joe was granted the right to foster the child in time. With proper support and stability, he was given something even more precious: the legal adoption papers that made the baby his own. A second chance, a new beginning. In the final moments of their journey, a quiet evening settled over their new home. The fireplace crackled softly, casting a golden glow across the room. Joe sat in a worn but comfortable armchair, cradling the child against his chest. The baby, now strong and healthy, slept peacefully. Fingers curled around the fabric of Joe's shirt beside them. Guardian lay on the floor, his head resting near Joe's feet, his eyes half closed, but ever watchful. He had chosen to protect this child once before, and he would do so for the rest of his life. Joe exhaled, his heart full, in a way he had forgotten was possible. He looked down at the sleeping baby, then at Guardian, and whispered with quiet certainty, "Family isn't just about blood, it's about the ones who choose to love and protect each other." And for the first time in years, he truly believed it. Some stories stay with us forever, not because of the tragedy, but because of the incredible acts of love that emerged from it. A homeless man with nothing to his name risked everything to save a life. A stray dog, abandoned and forgotten, became a hero when the world least expected it, and a child left alone in the cold was given a second chance, one that changed not just their life, but the lives of everyone who heard their story. This is the power of love, the power of kindness, the power of never giving up on those who need us the most. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Amazing Paw Stories for more incredible real-life stories of animals and humans changing each other's lives in the most unexpected ways, because sometimes the most amazing heroes come on four legs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.